still got market. If not market.
What's going on, guys? It's your favorite mortgage lender, Abdel Khawatmi, Got Mortgages. We're about to have with us in the studio Justin Lotano. He is a very good colleague of ours, also the owner of Shorepoint Wealth Management, a successful financial advisor for 20 plus years in the industry. We are going to go over everything from personal relationships, being married for what he thinks is 13 plus years and then some, having 3 beautiful children, talking about just life in general, balancing what it was from being a solo advisor to now running a successful practice. We're going to go over also some of the different strategies when it came to networking and some of the successful things that he has been seeing in his business, along with a brief take on the market and what his recommendations are. Make sure you guys tune in, and this is another episode of the Got Mortgages podcast. Boom. What's going on, guys? It's your favorite mortgage lender, Abdel Khawatmi, Got Mortgages, here with a very special guest, Justin Lotano with Shorepoint Wealth Management. Justin, how are you?
Very good. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you, Abdel.
Oh, I appreciate you. So, Justin, for those of you who don't know you, who is Justin Lotano?
Great question to start off. Professionally, I'm happy to be here, and I've been 20 years as a financial advisor in June, so it'll be 20 years as a financial advisor, which is kind of crazy to think. Dad, husband, business owner, entrepreneur, fisherman, gardener, community, very involved in the community. Yeah, that's it, man. That's me in a nutshell.
That's awesome.
It's kind of my main 4 different full-time jobs.
So you have 2 kids?
3 kids.
3 kids.
3 kids.
3.
Yeah, so I have a 12, a 9, and a 4-year-old.
Okay.
That keep us on our toes.
Dude. And your oldest is Gio, right?
Gio, yeah. So Giovanni's my oldest.
And he is the one that is definitely ramping up to take the reins.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he likes money. He kind of doesn't like working hard sometimes, but yeah, I mean, he's he might be taking over at some point. We've been working on it. He's got a pickle business that we work on each year. So he's definitely, he's into money and stocks and investing and that kind of stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Well, you would hope, right? It's the vision, because, you know, him and Layla are similar age. I mean, Layla's 14. And you try to like drag them in and kind of hope that they fall into it, not pushing them to it, but obviously doing that. And then your little guy and my little guy in the same room is like trouble.
Yeah. Lorenzo and Jimmy, that's a combination.
Tough room. You do not want to come to a party when they're both running around.
Correct.
And if it's awkwardly quiet, then it's like, what are these two up to?
Yeah.
So father, how many years?
So
I'm sorry, husband, how many years?
So we've been married for 14 years approximately. Known each other close to 20. Yeah, we met right after college, so 2006. So we've been together for a while, married for 14 years. I don't know if she'll watch this. I should know that better. 14 years.
We'll make sure Sean burps that part.
Yeah. Married for a while, three great kids.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, shifting focus, you had mentioned being involved in the community, right? You guys just wrapped up a super successful event, right, with the Colts Neck Lions Club, right?
Correct.
I know that was obviously heartfelt. That was something, the mission that your father used to have too. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about what goes into planning something like that.
Yeah, so it's, this is my 10th year sort of being the quarterback of the Kentucky Derby event. So it's a wine, beer, and bourbon tasting event for the Colts Neck Lions Club. I've gotten better with delegating. A lot goes into it. There's a lot of moving parts. There's permits, there's applications, there's the alcohol commission, there's getting vendors, getting sponsors, getting food trucks, ticket sales. There's so many moving parts in an event like that I've gotten good at kind of having the same people doing the same thing each year, where I'm sort of now not really doing any of them, but just making sure they're all getting done.
Traffic control.
Yeah. So I have one person who just does the the permits and the insurances. I have one person that's just in charge of like the sponsors and social media and making sure they're recognized. So it's a lot like a business. You have to have, you can't try to do it all. But the difference is with a nonprofit, you're dealing with volunteers. So you can't fire people. It's totally different. Whereas like you can assign, as an employer myself, you can tell people to, this is what your job is to do, and I'm paying you to do it. If they don't do it, there's consequences. Whereas with a nonprofit, it's not like that. So I'm the president of the nonprofit. I'm the president of my for-profit. So you have to treat them differently, but it's the same concept of like being organized and just trying to delegate and make sure things are getting done, and sort of just making sure the right people are doing them, and trying not to do it all yourself. Cause sure. I tend to try to do that too.
Yeah. I think most of us too, especially when, you obviously grew up in the industry, right? As a solo financial advisor, and then eventually opened up the doors. Was it 2 years ago?
Yes.
And when you were at your prior institution, right, it was obviously solo, you're under a large institution. And then when you end up opening up your own, talk to me about that transition, right?
Yeah, and it's still a learning curve. Like you said, for the first 18 years, it was just me. I was a solo advisor with dedicated support based on your revenue, and the support was, hired, trained, fired,
ready to go.
So when I was in the W-2 world as a financial advisor, if it wasn't working out with my assistant, I could just go to the manager and be like, I need a new assistant. And they would just give me kind of the next person in line. Whereas here, hiring is much more important, and firing is much more on you. So it's a little bit of a learning curve from that standpoint. And also, I wasn't in charge of the profit and loss statement in the other business. It was, the way that it works is they give you less of the pie, but they cover the cost. Now I'm on my own, so you pay a little bit more attention to, where things are going,
sure.
And focus on things like profitability and things like that. So yeah, I'm still doing the same thing, helping people manage their money and get to goals. But as a entrepreneur in my own business, there's obviously different responsibilities that go along with it. So
sure. And one of the biggest things I've seen, especially knowing you over the last several years, is you're also one to want to stay up to date with modern times, so you could bring that customer service experience through that. Talk to me about that. What are some of the things that you're dabbling in to kind of help keep that? Because you're extremely regimented. Right?
Yes.
You're very structured, very tailored in terms of your approach, in terms of your communication, right, and stuff like that. Talk to me about, did you learn that? Was that something that you kind of learned, or you were kind of like forced to be like, dude, I have to be like this? So
I would say I started working with the business coach 10 years ago. And that was a real changing moment for me. He spent a lot of time focusing on vision and what you want your life to look like in 3, 5, 10 years. And that's all good because that helps you stay motivated when you're doing the stuff that nobody wants to do on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. But part of my business plan was trying to acquire businesses of retiring advisors. It is a much older field. So when I went to Wells Fargo 10 years ago, I looked around and I saw the demographics of the office, and I knew there'd be opportunities to acquire businesses. Much more older office, in other words. And so I knew that I had to have all of my systems tight around client service, because it's much easier to build one client at a time. But when you're looking at potentially taking on 100 clients overnight, you have to make sure your systems are tight. So it forced me to spend a lot of time focusing on systems and scalability, which I did through a client service model that's extremely tightly run, template driven. So it feels very customized for clients, but it is very automated in the background. And then obviously, I designed that all 10 years ago. And now that technology is advanced, a lot of it is now even more automated, using AI and stuff like that and it's making the customer service process and client service process still feel genuine, you have to use it the right way. It can't just be like set and forget it. So I knew, because my goal was to acquire businesses, which I ended up buying 2 practices in the last 7 years. And then I went to independent through my broker dealer now and opened up my own office. So I knew I wanted to take over businesses and acquire. You can't do that without being tight from a scaling and system standpoint.
100%. Yeah. Same, literally exact same model. And I think it's transferable to anybody watching in any business, right? Before you're looking to, whether it's not just take on businesses that are exiting, but recruiting people. If you're looking to recruit advisors, sales professionals, loan officers, realtors, if you don't have that plug and play model, right? Whether it's consumer driven or employee driven, you're going to have a hard time.
Yeah.
Right. And there's so many different personalities. And I always enjoy, getting your emails, and I probably always respond to them too.
You do.
Because I look for that stuff. Like, I enjoy that stuff. And you said it best too, where the automation part of your business is there, but you're so concerned with the client experience journey, which in the age of AI and technology and stuff like that, I'm a firm believer that a lot of people are using this stuff incorrectly, where
Correct.
they're using it more for sales. Like, we just wrapped up one of our meetings, and I tell everybody that we talk to, you can use it for certain portions of sales if you just run out of something to talk about or whatever, but you're using it more similar to many successful professionals from an operational perspective, from an efficiency perspective, from helping you track certain KPIs and looking at certain things, and then keeping that still consumer-facing version of Justin Lotano and Joe and all that stuff, taking it from there. Now, you've obviously growing now, back to my question, where you grew from a solo advisor to now having a team, to managing that. How was that transition at the same time? Because you talked about delegating with nonprofit. How hard is it to now delegating some clients over to some of your teammates?
So yeah, it's for my clients who have been with me for a long time, it's a delicate situation. They first and foremost know that I'm always here. I'm in charge of the portfolios, as far as managing the money, and I'm always here for a phone call. What we started to do for certain clients is just transition together, and we're working on the cases together, doing a lot of the review meetings together. And then over time, they're getting more and more comfortable with other members of the team. And they're also, I try to just tell clients that you want me managing your money. You don't want me doing the admin stuff. Because in the beginning, when I was growing my team, I'd have clients that would call and they would have to talk to Justin. And that's fine. I love that. I love my clients. But if you have 250 clients and somebody calls and it's just, I need to reschedule the meeting, or I need a few $1,000s from my account, trying to just let my clients know, like, my time is best used meeting with you and working on your accounts and making sure they're managed properly. There are other fully capable people, and just giving them, letting them know they should be confident in the people I'm surrounding myself with, and allowing the people on the team to handle some of those tasks and some of those phone calls. When you call your doctor's office, you don't talk to your doctor every time. And I hate to say that, because I want my clients to know I'm always there for them. But as you're growing and expanding, it is important that your clients have confidence in the team that you're surrounding yourselves with, so that you don't have to take every single phone call when it is things other people can do.
Yeah, it's the art of delegation, right? We preach this time and time again, in everything that we do with our other branch managers, with our loan officers. Where if you guys need something updated or pre-approval, reach out to the licensed LOA, let them put it together. If we have a client consultation with somebody, I'm not making the initial phone call. The team is making the initial call, as I'm sure you do the same, and take it from there. I'm sure you probably got calls and texts and emails and automated responses and updates saying, "Hey, just a reminder, your podcast is coming up." Now, shifting gears also, obviously you and I met through a networking event, right? With 3Cs. Shout out to Jeremy and everybody in our group. I love asking this question to everybody who comes, is at what point did you realize that networking was something that is uber important to your business, right? Being a solo advisor, and did you network as much as you do back then working for a larger institution, call it, than what you do now?
So, I was always into networking. I was always good at networking and getting clients even at a young age. Now, of course, when you're 22, when I started 22, 23 years old, it's a lot different. And because the nature of my business, I have to have certain professionals within my network, whether it's like CPAs, mortgage people, realtor, divorce attorney, CPAs. You have to have those people within your network, because your clients need those people. We consider ourselves the quarterback in a lot of these, financial pictures. So it's important to have different professionals and a few of them. I have my go-tos, but it's really important because you have to match up personalities as well. I get all of my clients from either referrals from clients or referrals from other professionals. I'm not on any billboards. I don't do a lot of like Google ads. It's word of mouth. So it's either referrals from, like I said, from clients or from other professionals. So you have to have, a network of other professionals to grow. And, I think a lot of people know we do a really good job with clients, and that's a great way to get introduced because it's less, it doesn't cost a lot.
Sure.
The conversion ratios are obviously higher. So, that's what we tend to focus on.
Yeah, and your customer experience translates also into just a handoff, right? Like we've had the opportunity to work with several clients, and it's always a handoff into one who's just looking for a couple of bucks to buy something, and then another situation with a client that it was just a shit show, tight timeline, and we had the connection, and we always, most importantly, one, we're a reflection of the person who does the connection too. And what we always like to do too, purposely, is keep that professional who did the connection in the line as well, in the loop, because then there should never be a question as to what's happening, right? We're a firm believer in that. And I know you are the same when you guys operate, because it's just that handoff and let it take care of itself and take it from there. Now you've got your one advisor, Joe, right? How's he been? What's his impact towards your business? And are you looking to bring on more advisors?
Yeah, so Joe's been excellent to work with, as most of my clients can also attest to. What Joe gives me is the ability to have peace of mind when I'm not in the office. To have somebody that I trust that can handle 99% of the situations
And make good coffee.
and make great coffee, great coffee.
Great coffee.
Joe's been a real, he's a great person to have on my team as part of the business, because he's incredibly smart. He's incredibly personable with clients. But what he gives to me is when I'm not in the office, I can let go a little bit. Which, when you're a solo advisor without anybody else who can talk to other people, even when you're away with your family or away with your wife, you're always on call somewhat, even though we're not, I'm not a neurosurgeon. We're not like buying and selling stocks, like day trading. But people's money is an emotional thing.
Sure.
So they want to talk when they want to talk, and you got to get back to people quick if you want to provide a certain level of service and get referrals like we're talking about. So what having a good teammate like Joe gives me is when I'm with my family, when I'm with my wife, when I'm not in the office, I know things are taken care of. I did a trip with my wife and I didn't take one client call for a whole week. He was able to handle everything. So what he gives me is just the confidence when I'm not there that things are going to run smooth, and I'm not having to always check my email, my phone, and call people back right away, because he's able to take care of a lot of stuff, which, is priceless.
Hard to find.
Yeah.
Now, are you looking for other advisors simultaneously while Shorepoint Wealth continues to grab its footprint?
Yeah, if it's the right person, the right fit with the, that could fit in with the culture. I think that we have a great opportunity to bring on new advisors if somebody's looking. And it's a lot of it has to do with, our reputation and our brand. We are getting an influx of new clients every single month and at new assets. And Joe is doing a great job with that. We have, a lot of turnkey marketing in place for new clients. The client service model is built. We use incredible technology that I have access to that I didn't before.
Yep.
That if, somebody who's an advisor who their broker dealer doesn't allow that kind of stuff because they're stuck somewhere or they're just scared to kind of take the leap, Like you could literally plug in tomorrow and have access to everything. Am I like actively, aggressively trying? Right now things are going so well that, we're growing at a really high clip without it. But if the right person was looking for a good opportunity, I'm always open to that, of course.
I love that. Now I want to shift gears a little bit into, I'd be remiss to not bring up our book club that we've got.
Shout out to the book club.
I know the guys would beat us up if we don't. So I came in a little after the fact. How did the book club come about? I know many successful aspiring entrepreneurs, right, are those who regimentally sit there and look to educate themselves and things like that. Were you always a, let's call it, reader or articulator of some stuff, and then that's kind of how it grew into your business?
So with every like Thanksgiving to Christmas, I do my goals, as do you. Your business goals, your personal goals. I always say set goals and pummel them. That should be one of your shirts. In fact, set goals and pummel. So I for like 3 straight years, my goal was to read 12 books, one a month. Seems easy. And I was very rarely opening a book and getting to the back cover. And I think it was my ADD kicking in. I'd start it. I'd read 30 pages. Then somebody like you would be like, you should read Profit First. And I'd go to Amazon, I'd order it. The next book would come in. And I just was never getting through entire books. So I basically set up a group text. It was individual text through copy and paste. And the qualifications were just like somebody in business, relatively young, either owning a business or in like some sort of sales position that I really like. And I sent the text out to 12 people and just said, looking to start a book club for accountability. We're going to read 1 book a month. I never get to the end of the books and I want some accountability with it. And I was shocked at how many people were like, wow, that's awesome. And I also like pick up books and get 30 pages in or 80 pages in and never get to the end. So we basically started with, and it was very interesting because the first meeting, there might've been 10 people and no one knew each other. They were, people from high school, people from college, people from business, people from this. There was no criteria that you had to be like in a certain service industry. It wasn't a networking group. It was just like people I get along well with that were like this. So, and then slowly now each person in the group really knows each other. And that's where we started. Like it started with beans and books, and now it's beans, books, and brotherhood because, I see people going to each other's kids, games. I see people, doing networking outside of it, outside of just the book club, but it's an accountability group. It's been one of the greatest things that I've started. I have networking groups. I run a couple of groups. I have the nonprofit and the business. It's just like, there's something special about this group. We like bond, we talk about life, we talk about business. We started to mix in some fiction books in there, some autobiographies in the mix. So, it's a great group. I don't think we're really looking for new people at this point in the book. Like we have our solid, like 12, not trying to make it a huge thing, but it's a great group. I've gotten a lot out of it. I think about the books that we've read up to this point all the time and the different little lessons and tidbits from them. Love the book club.
It's great too because accountability, I think, is the key. Where you're like, I don't want to be that dude who didn't read it, and I'll be, as you've seen, right? 'Cause we travel, and I'll literally be on Zoom, hungover, or driving to the gym like last month when we were in DC. But you look forward to it.
Yeah,
right? It's friendship. It's fun. It's not even about work because that takes care of itself. But really, really all about that stuff. I'd be remiss if we don't talk very briefly about the market. Right?
Okay.
Obviously, in my world, mortgages, because I think it's truly like congruent in nature, right? Market does well, market does terrible. Market was always fairly flat, right? Wouldn't you agree? And then some of the geopolitical stuff kind of caused the market to drop, whatever the percentage is. We don't have to say it. And now it looks like we're somewhat of a positive trajectory, right?
Yeah. So yeah, we've had, obviously the big concern over the last few years was inflation, right? Inflation hit, it was 10% year over year. Fed has to increase interest rates in 2022, and that has a big impact on your business.
Oh yeah.
And then 23, 24, and 25, everyone was hopeful of rate cuts. And things were going well, and the stock market did well in 23, 24, and 25, double-digit returns. And we start getting into this year, things are sort of flat. Rates are coming down. Everyone's expecting a few rate cuts in 2020, 2026. And then end of February, Iran happens, and it kind of puts, oh no, what's going on into the mix. So, as soon as that happened, oil jumped from $65 a barrel to $100 a barrel in a week. Interest rates jumped. And then basically everyone was worried that high oil prices will lead to more inflation, which is the last thing we need. More inflation means the Fed's not going to cut rates, so it's probably having an impact on the spring housing market with rates being higher. We saw the market from peak to trough end of February through end of March, dropped like 8.5%. And then the ceasefire starts, so people are more optimistic. The market rebounded and then some. We're now at all-time highs. My message the whole time, and I do these Monday morning videos, so you can even go back, which I'm starting to wonder if those are a good idea or not. But
I do it. So I do our Monday market update. So I see them. They're good.
Yeah. And my message all along was, for clients, is, we think this is still going to be short-lived. Who knows at this point? We said that, in the first week, and it's been, I think we're in week 9. The market's come all the way back. Oil's still elevated, so the inflation concern's still there. But our message to clients has remained steadfast that we don't react quickly to events like this. We tend to be disciplined, like in anything we do, is have a strategy, be disciplined, have your cash reserve and your emergency fund taken care of, so you're never having to sell investments at the end of March. And our message has been pretty clear, like we think this is going to be short-lived. Hopefully a true ceasefire is put in place that both sides actually say is in place, because you're kind of getting a lot of mixed signals. Obviously, the Strait of Hormuz is a major problem with oil prices, and also insecticides and pesticides and fertilizer all go through there. Again, inflationary things with food prices. If a ceasefire happens, oil continues to drop. Now it's, I think, 92 as we speak per barrel. But it's still 30% higher than it was. So the market's rebounded all of the gains and then some, but oil's still 30% higher. You're going to start to see prices go up, and so the longer this goes on, the more, but we are making some proactive changes in clients' accounts. Actually this week we made a couple changes, adding some, non-correlated investment asset classes into clients' portfolios. You want to do that when the market's at its all-time high. I had a couple clients when the market was down 7-8%, like, should we get out? Said, just hang tight. Let's see how it plays out. I called those clients back after the rebound. I said, listen, if you want to get safer, we do it now when the market's at its all-time high, not after the 9% drop. So for some clients, they were like, maybe I don't want to take as much risk. So we made those changes. But, overall, we, if the war stops, oil drops, rates drops, hopefully this can be another year. It could be 4 straight double-digit return years in a row.
Yeah. I mean, we see it consistently, having that conversation with clients at the same time, where it's such a tricky part in our world, because it is somewhat short-lived on a transaction where you get about 30, 45 days. And traditionally, I'm always monitoring CPI, PCE report, right? PCE came out last week. Last week was a data-filled week with PCE, Fed paused, Jerome Powell's last meeting, but now he's going to stay apparently as the governing chair or whatever the case may be. But PCE, if you stripped away food and energy, has been flat.
Yeah.
That core PCE has been flat. Obviously, we know gas prices are up. Luckily, I drive a Tesla. So we've been pretty lucky.
Yes, you do.
Cool. Well, if people are looking to find you, what's the best way for them to find you?
Email, cell phone. My number's 908-216-5653. So email, text, whatever works.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you joining us.
All right,
thanks
Abdel.
again for your time.
My pleasure, man.
You got
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks, guys. Again, guys, this is another episode of the Got Mortgages podcast, and we'll see you guys soon.